There is a quiet, glowing thread that weaves itself through the tapestry of human life, a luminous line that speaks of purpose, destiny, and the deeper call of the divine. Though we often go about our days preoccupied with the ordinary rhythms of work and rest, duty and delight, there are moments when we pause in wonder. We look around at the people we know, the teacher with an uncanny capacity to see the hidden spark in each child, the neighbor who seems able to comfort others with a mere touch, the leader whose vision transcends everyday calculations. And we might wonder, are some among us chosen for a greater purpose? Such a question has guided the spiritual imaginations of countless generations. We have inherited stories of individuals singled out by the Creator for remarkable tasks. Abraham led by the voice of God, Moses chosen to guide his people to freedom, Esther rising to save her nation, and Mary whose humble acceptance set the stage for a story cherished by billions. In each narrative, we see the convergence of faith, doubt, fear, courage, and, ultimately, surrender to a plan larger than personal ambition. Within these sweeping tales of destiny, something resonates in the human heart. The notion that beyond the mundane is a realm of possibility, wherein the ordinary yields almost shyly to the extraordinary. Yet it is not simply biblical heroes who provide this resonance. Our modern lives, too, are dotted with luminous figures whose bearing, words, and actions hint at something deeper, as though an unseen hand is guiding them. They are not necessarily wealthy, famous, or even charismatic in the usual sense. Instead, they possess a quiet resolve, an inexhaustible compassion, or a strange serenity that both puzzles and inspires. They are, in short, the kind of people who seem chosen, or, to use a time-honored term, set apart, to illuminate the path for others. Reflecting upon these individuals and the theme of divine purpose prompts us to consider how faith and reason intersect. Can something beyond our comprehension choose particular souls to execute a cosmic plan? Might skepticism be necessary to keep us grounded while we explore these grand possibilities? In grappling with these questions, we enter a realm both thrilling and unsettling. We shift from the safety of our familiar perspectives to the daring possibility that the world is awash in miracles, and that miracles might, in fact, pulse at the very heart of our daily existence. This essay sets out on a journey through those shifting realms. Over the course of these pages, we will weave the perspectives of faith and doubt, logic and mystery, into a tapestry that aspires to capture the magnitude of what it means to be chosen. We will explore the characteristics of such individuals, how their resilience, humility, and capacity for transformative love set them apart. We will delve into the delicate interplay between skepticism and belief, considering the many faces of doubt and the many ways faith can manifest. Above all, we will reflect on how encountering those touched by divine purpose can transform our own lives, beckoning us to open our hearts to the possibility of the miraculous within the very fabric of the everyday. Ultimately, the story of those chosen by God echoes across religious traditions, philosophical explorations, and even secular reflections. The world's sacred narratives, from the Abrahamic faiths to Eastern spiritualities, speak with a striking unanimity about the concept of being called or chosen. Yet the power of these ideas is not restricted to those who come from explicitly religious backgrounds. The deeper human longing for meaning and direction, and the intuition that perhaps each life is meant for something wondrous, ripples through every culture, every place, every era. Thus, this investigation of chosen ones touches the common ground of our shared humanity, urging us to look inward and outward with fresh eyes. So let us now begin, traveling into the heart of a question that has in various forms echoed through the ages. What does it mean to be chosen for a divine purpose? And how do we recognize the extraordinary in the ordinary? We start with an examination of divine purpose itself, its foundations in faith, and its intersection with human reason. In the labyrinth of existence, the notion of divine purpose has an elusive quality, much like a fragrance carried by the wind. It is intangible and yet unmistakable, easily doubted and yet persistently reasserting its presence. Across cultures and civilizations, from the earliest expressions of spirituality to modern religious thought, the idea that our lives might be tethered to something infinite, a boundless tapestry woven by the Creator, has offered both solace and perplexity. For many, divine purpose represents the gentle summons to lead a life aligned with transcendent will. For others, it remains an intriguing possibility weighed against the evidence of a seemingly chaotic world. The philosophical underpinnings of divine purpose span the distance between ancient wisdom and contemporary discourse. In Plato's dialogues, a sense of the good transcends temporal realities, suggesting that the soul seeks something higher than the ephemeral. In Aristotle's exploration of the telos, or the end goal, we find the seeds of teleological inquiry, asking not just how things happen, but why. Later, Thomas Aquinas blended these classical ideas with Christian theology, emphasizing that humans have a divinely ordained end that is both rational and oriented toward God. In Islam, the concept of maqasid, higher objectives, points to a divine framework guiding ethical pursuits. In Hinduism, the concept of dharma evokes an intricate blueprint of duty and cosmic balance, suggesting that each being has a role, a purpose, which resonates with universal harmony. No matter the tradition, the grounding intuition remains. There exists a meaning beneath the randomness, a tapestry that the human mind can only partially see. If divine purpose is a road, then faith is often the compass by which we attempt to navigate it. Faith, in this sense, is not merely mental assent to doctrine, but an active orientation of one's life toward trust in something greater. It is like opening a window in a dark room, letting in the light of dawn so that shapes previously hidden in the gloom now reveal themselves with gentle clarity. Yet faith alone, absent reflection, can become blind allegiance or naive idealism. This is where reason enters, providing a critical apparatus to test, probe, and examine experiences claimed to be divine. Even within deeply religious frameworks, spiritual teachers from the Buddha to Augustine have emphasized the union of faith with reason, encouraging believers to ask questions, to confront doubt head-on, to wrestle with contradictions. In many ways, reason does not negate the possibility of divine purpose. Rather, it keeps our exploration grounded, ensuring that our sense of chosenness does not dissolve into arrogance or self-deception. For individuals who sense a divine summons, the notion of higher purpose might first appear as an inner stirring, a gentle whisper urging them to see beyond surface concerns. Often, an encounter or an event triggers this sense, a profound synchronicity, a dream that resonates with uncanny clarity, a moment of prayer in which time seems to collapse. In secular contexts, this might be described as a calling, an inner conviction about one's life work or moral duty. Whether labeled spiritual or psychological, these moments can alter the trajectory of a person's life, steering them away from old paradigms and toward the unknown territory of transformation. Yet, to entertain the idea that some are chosen by God introduces another layer of mystery. Being chosen implies a particular selection, a singling out, that might raise questions. Why him and not her? What divine criteria decides who carries the torch? Could it be an illusion born of human egocentrism? Such questions reflect the tension between the apparent arbitrariness of selection and the belief in a wise and loving Creator whose ways often surpass our comprehension. This tension is perhaps what leads many to wonder, in moments of both awe and anxiety, if any of us might be chosen in ways we scarcely understand. This essay does not pretend to resolve the mysteries of the divine will once and for all. Instead, it aims to situate them within the lived experience of those who might indeed be chosen. Rather than focusing purely on abstract theological speculation, we aim to illuminate the lived contours of what it is like to bear that mantle, often a mantle as heavy with responsibility as it is radiant with grace. The next section explores the everyday soil from which these chosen ones emerge, showing how the extraordinary can sprout, almost paradoxically, from the most ordinary conditions. To speak of divine purpose can easily conjure images of grand cathedrals, mystical apparitions, or the parted waters of a biblical sea. Yet one of the most striking features of those considered chosen by God is how thoroughly human they remain, even in the midst of miracles. The chosen ones walk dusty roads, laugh with friends, and fret over daily burdens. They are born into the same joys and heartaches as the rest of us, and it is precisely within this ordinariness that their extraordinary nature often reveals itself. When we read about Moses shepherding in the wilderness, or Mary going about her daily chores, we see that their defining encounters with the divine came in the midst of life's routines. Moses did not seek out a burning bush, it interrupted his mundane tasks. Mary was not campaigning for a miraculous destiny. The angel's greeting arrived at the threshold of her simple, faithful living. Such narratives highlight an essential truth. The divine often intersects with our most commonplace realities. The chosen ones are not always shaped by thunderbolts from the heavens. Rather, they are molded day by day in the crucible of life, their hearts attuned to subtle divine whispers. Modern parallels abound. The teacher, for instance, who day after day invests in the well-being of her students, teaching them not only knowledge but compassion, may discover she has been chosen to shape an entire generation's moral conscience. The nurse who provides unwavering care to patients in dire conditions might, through her ceaseless empathy, become the vessel for healing that surpasses mere biology. Such callings do not always make headlines, nor do they necessarily manifest as spectacular miracles. Yet in the eyes of those touched by their devotion, these individuals radiate a grace that points to something beyond. The tension lies in acknowledging that not all who do good work or show compassion are singled out for a grand cosmic task. The notion of chosen implies a specificity that transcends everyday goodness. This is where the interplay of mystery and recognition comes to the fore. Many people lead virtuous lives, but do not necessarily experience the sense of destiny that marks the chosen. Others, initially unremarkable, display a resiliency and aura of peace that seem almost superhuman, especially when faced with adversity. The puzzle is whether they were always chosen and simply grew into that identity, or whether the choice is a dynamic process that unfolds in tandem with personal growth. In the hush of ordinary living, being chosen can manifest as an openness to divine guidance that others might overlook. While many dismiss coincidences or intuitive insights as insignificant, the chosen ones sense in these occurrences the subtle fingerprints of God. To them, a seemingly chance encounter might be a divine appointment, a crisis might be a call to deeper trust, and a moment of stillness might reveal a sacred presence. This perspective is not naivete. Rather, it is an attentiveness that resonates with ancient spiritual practices, like the exam in Ignatian spirituality, which urge believers to discover God in all things, no matter how trivial they seem. Those with a sense of calling often describe that their sense of God's nearness intensifies during the most unremarkable tasks. Washing dishes, walking a dog, sending children off to school. In such quiet routines, the heart can become a humble altar, a place of consecration where daily life and the divine converge. This is reminiscent of the monastic tradition, where simple daily chores, like gardening or sweeping floors, are transformed into contemplative acts that nurture awareness of God's presence. The spiritual significance is profound. If the Creator God moves through the everyday, then no act is too small, no circumstance too mundane to contain the seeds of revelation. By finding splendor in the everyday, chosen ones inadvertently challenge the modern inclination to compartmentalize faith into occasional acts of worship or ritual. Instead, their lives embody a seamless integration where all things, from joyous celebrations to heartbreaks, become catalysts for deeper communion. This integration, however, does not negate the reality of hardship. On the contrary, it is often in hardships, illness, betrayal, or loneliness that the chosen experience their greatest transformations, tempered like steel in the furnace of suffering until they radiate peace and hope in a manner almost incomprehensible to onlookers. In this way, the extraordinary emerges, not despite ordinariness, but because of it. Faith is not a separate realm of life. It is woven into the smallest gestures, thoughts, and interactions. And it is within that sacred weaving that the chosen begin to stand out, revealing an unshakable anchor in God that does not depend on outward success or recognition. They become the mirror through which others might glimpse their own potential for divine connection. The path is not easy. Indeed, it can be rife with trials, but it offers a horizon of meaning that transforms not only the chosen, but all who come into their orbit. What then distinguishes these chosen souls from the rest of us, who, though imperfect, also strive for love, kindness, and purpose? While the line can be ambiguous, certain hallmarks consistently surface in the testimony of those who have encountered such individuals. Principal among these characteristics are resilience, unexplainable peace, and a transformative influence that radiates into the lives of others. Resilience is not mere stoicism or grit. In the context of divine chosenness, resilience hints at a spiritual backbone that remains intact under the crushing weight of life's hardest trials. Whether confronting familial strife, financial ruin, physical illness, or even persecution, these individuals somehow endure. Indeed, they often flourish in ways that surpass the normal definitions of survival. An apt biblical example would be Joseph, who, after being sold into slavery, imprisoned, and forgotten, rose to a station that saved an entire nation from famine. Modern parallels might include leaders of social justice movements who, despite repeated threats and setbacks, press onward, fueled by a conviction that transcends personal ambition. What underlies such resilience? Often those who experience it speak of an inner assurance they cannot fully articulate. They might call it a promise, an anchor, or a guiding light. It whispers that their suffering is not in vain, that there is purpose even in adversity, and that God's hand remains upon them. This sense of destiny does not eliminate pain or frustration, but it infuses them with the spiritual stamina to continue. Critics might argue that such belief is escapist, yet time and again these chosen figures demonstrate a tangible impact on the world around them, suggesting that their inner conviction fuels real outcomes, not merely psychological consolation. A second striking hallmark is an unexplainable peace, a tranquility that surpasses reason, often noticed most vividly during times of crisis. Consider the stories of persecuted saints or modern individuals who have faced unimaginable hardship, prisoners of war who forgave their captors, people who lose everything in a disaster but respond with compassion and calm. Observers sometimes describe being in the presence of a living miracle, as though these individuals radiate a calm that is contagious. While ordinary folks might succumb to panic, those touched by divine purpose seem to dwell in a sanctuary that remains intact when the world is collapsing around them. In Christian scripture, this peace is often described as the peace that surpasses all understanding, a phrase that has become somewhat commonplace, yet retains a powerful mystery. The phrase suggests that this peace is not the product of positive thinking or denial of reality, but rather a gift that emerges from relationship with the divine. In secular contexts, one might perceive this phenomenon as a form of emotional intelligence or psychological fortitude. Yet even psychologists note that some individuals exhibit an almost preternatural calm that goes beyond what can be accounted for by training or personality alone. It is as though they are, in that moment, carried by grace. Finally, the chosen possess a radiating influence that can be life-altering for those around them. This transformative quality works on multiple levels. Sometimes it is dramatic, such as the miracle-working prophets of old, whose prayers bring healing or deliverance. More often, it is quiet yet profound, like a teacher whose encouragement sets a struggling student on the path to excellence, or a parent whose steadfast faith shapes the moral compass of their children in ways that echo through generations. In many religious traditions, this phenomenon is called the overflowing cup, drawing from the psalmist's language about blessings that spill over from one life to another. The chosen one's alignment with divine purpose becomes a wellspring from which others can drink, either directly or indirectly. Even skeptics who do not share the chosen one's faith might find themselves oddly moved, compelled to reevaluate their own assumptions. It is as though the chosen person's presence disrupts the ordinary flow of energy in a room, making space for growth, healing, or repentance. In some, resilience, peace, and transformative presence often converge, reinforcing one another. Resilience fosters deeper peace, peace heightens the capacity to transform others, and the act of transformation often loops back to strengthen resilience. This triad is more than a personality type. It is an outpouring of a heart rooted in a larger divine narrative. To encounter it is to glimpse how the extraordinary can manifest through living vessels, bearing witness to the idea that we are not alone, that something or someone greater is at work. When discussing miracles, we must tread carefully, for the term itself can provoke fervent devotion in some and deep skepticism in others. Yet among the chosen, stories of the miraculous often accumulate, creating a patchwork of anecdotes that challenge everyday reason. These can range from small synchronicities, like timely financial provision arriving just when needed, to grand events that defy scientific explanation, like unexplained healings, angelic visions, or supernatural deliverances. The question, of course, is how we interpret these happenings. Are they genuine interventions by a loving God, or are they coincidences and illusions shaped by wishful thinking? Not all miracles are created equal. Some are personal, unfolding in a way that is meaningful primarily to the individual, an inexplicable sense of guidance that prevents them from boarding a plane that later crashes, for instance. Others are communal, experienced by multiple eyewitnesses, a miraculous healing witnessed by doctors, or a group of people seeing the same vision. Skeptics rightly point out the possibility of misinterpretation, placebo effects, or even fraud. While such critiques are necessary for intellectual honesty, they do not fully account for the frequency and consistency with which miracles are reported, especially among those whose lives appear to be marked by divine purpose. Intriguingly, many chosen individuals express a certain humility about miracles. They do not trumpet these events as proof of their special status, nor do they dismiss them as inconsequential. Rather, they treat miracles as signs that God is intimately involved in the unfolding of their calling. Far from using miracles to boast or manipulate, the truly chosen often accept them with a reverent awe. This attitude contrasts sharply with exploitative sensationalism, highlighting a key element. Genuine miracles, in the context of being chosen, tend to foster humility rather than pride. Paradoxically, miracles can become a burden, for when people observe them, they may begin to expect the chosen one to produce them on demand. This expectation can put enormous pressure on the individual, who may feel compelled to fulfill public hopes, even when such phenomena cannot be orchestrated at will. Indeed, the mechanics of miracles remain as mysterious as the wind. One can sense its presence and effects, but cannot command its movements. Here, the chosen one's humility becomes a shield against the traps of ego and showmanship. By acknowledging that miracles proceed from God and not from themselves, these individuals maintain integrity and avoid the corruption that can arise from fame. Not all miracles are supernatural in the strict sense. Sometimes, the greatest miracle is the change of a human heart. Consider the stories of hardened criminals who encounter a chosen individual, perhaps a prison chaplain or a volunteer, and experience a radical transformation, turning from violence to compassion. Or think of a broken marriage restored by the patient counsel and love of a pastor who seems to carry divine wisdom in their words. These transformations might not capture headlines, but to those involved, they feel every bit as miraculous as the parting of a sea. They signal that grace can infiltrate the darkest corners of the human spirit, breathing life into what once was dead. Such quiet miracles often become the bedrock of a chosen one's ministry or calling. They might never be recognized on a grand stage, but within the ripple effect of changed lives, entire communities can be renewed. In an age enamored with spectacle, these subtler miracles remind us that divine power can operate gently, persuasively, through the currency of human relationships. Often it is this kind of miracle, born of consistent compassion, empathy, and spiritual wisdom, that cements a chosen one's legacy in the hearts of those they serve. Ultimately, the miraculous dimension of the chosen's life underscores the interplay between heaven and earth. Whether or not one accepts these accounts as literal or symbolic, it remains undeniable that such narratives shape the communal imagination, reminding people of a reality that extends beyond the boundaries of normal causality. For believers, miracles are not random disruptions of natural law, but rather loving reminders of a God who cares about the intimate details of our lives. For the chosen, miracles become both a reassurance of their calling and a mandate to serve with humility, always pointing beyond themselves to the one who empowers them. It would be disingenuous to glorify the idea of chosenness without acknowledging the profound skepticism that shadows such claims. In a world shaped by scientific inquiry and rational thought, the notion that some are singled out by the Creator can seem archaic or self-indulgent. Skeptics argue that history is replete with cult leaders and power-hungry monarchs who wielded the claim of divine appointment to justify oppression. Even outside such extremes, many people, shaped by the empirical rigor of modern education, find it difficult to reconcile the concept of miracles or special callings with a worldview that prizes verifiable data. To be sure, skepticism is not inherently bad. When channeled constructively, it serves as a vital safeguard against credulity and manipulation. It compels us to examine claims of miracles critically, seeking corroboration, consistency, and ethical fruit. After all, a miracle that fosters exploitation or deception is likely not divine in origin, but a sham designed to exploit gullible audiences. Reason then helps maintain accountability. It urges the chosen one to submit their experiences to communal discernment, preventing spiritual pride. Indeed, in many religious traditions, the council of elders and the close study of sacred texts serve as checks against both heresy and self-delusion. However, reason has its limits. Science, for instance, excels at measuring observable phenomena, but it struggles with transcendent realities like love, purpose, or the possibility of a divine plan. These are not quantifiable entities, though their influence on human life is profound. While we can measure the chemical correlates of love or spiritual states in the brain, the subjective experience of love itself defies laboratory definition. Similarly, the notion of being chosen may resist empirical validation, yet it can hold an interior authenticity and resonance that shapes a person's life in powerful ways. In this sense, belief in divine purpose belongs to a domain that might be best described as transrational, not necessarily contrary to reason, but beyond reason's scope. Much like the appreciation of art or the experience of beauty, it involves an intuitive grasp of something that cannot be reduced to mere data. This does not mean that believers reject logic. Rather, they complement it with an openness to mystery. A chosen individual who navigates life's challenges through both rational analysis and prayerful surrender demonstrates a holistic approach that integrates mind and spirit. Rather than existing as antagonists, skepticism and faith can engage each other in a dance that refines both. Genuine faith does not cower in the face of questioning. It welcomes inquiry, knowing that truth ultimately stands firm under scrutiny. Likewise, honest skepticism does not attempt to stifle the possibility of the miraculous, but tests it with an eye for authenticity. This dynamic interplay can foster a deeper understanding of what it means to be chosen, one that acknowledges the complexities and potential pitfalls while remaining alive to transcendent possibility. We see this interplay in the stories of biblical figures like Gideon, who requested signs from God multiple times before accepting his calling, or Thomas, who doubted the resurrection until he touched Christ's wounds. Their skepticism did not nullify their faith. It refined it, grounding it in lived experience. Likewise, in contemporary contexts, individuals who question their sense of chosenness may emerge with an even deeper conviction, tempered by the honesty of their doubts. They learn to distinguish between illusions of grandeur and authentic calls to serve, between ego-driven fantasies and genuine movements of the spirit. In essence, healthy skepticism does not eradicate the notion of the chosen. It ensures that those who claim it do so with humility, transparency, and alignment with the highest ethical standards. Such a balance frees us from the extremes of blind fanaticism on one end and cynical materialism on the other, allowing a mature spirituality to flourish. Through this lens, the chosen ones become both subject and object of scrutiny, learning to articulate their experiences in a manner that resonates even with those who remain cautious. In doing so, they invite a larger conversation about purpose, destiny, and the possibility that the extraordinary can indeed burst forth in the midst of ordinary life. One of the most compelling dimensions of being chosen is the sense that an unseen hand guides and protects the individual in profound ways. From ancient tales of angels standing guard to modern testimonies of inexplicable escapes from danger, accounts of divine intervention abound. Skeptics attribute these accounts to chance or psychological projection, yet for those who experience it, the conviction of a guiding presence is unshakable. Guidance can manifest in multiple forms. Sometimes it comes as a still, small voice, an intuition or an inner nudge that leads to crucial decisions. Other times it appears through outward signs, chance meetings that yield life-altering opportunities, scripture passages or spiritual readings that speak with uncanny relevance to a current dilemma, or even dreams that carry symbolic weight. While some might dismiss these as coincidences, a chosen individual sees in them the meticulous fingerprints of a God who orchestrates circumstances for the fulfillment of a higher plan. This awareness of divine direction does not negate human agency. On the contrary, it invites a cooperation between the human will and divine leading, a synergy sometimes described as co-creation. The chosen must discern, pray, reflect, and act. In this dynamic interplay, mistakes can still occur. Indeed, many biblical heroes stumbled along their journeys despite divine guidance. Yet even these missteps become lessons woven back into the tapestry of purpose. There is, in short, a sense that no moment is wasted, for God's redemption can infiltrate every circumstance. Protection is another frequent theme among the chosen. Stories of near misses, accidents that miraculously did not happen, violent attacks thwarted at the last second, fill the annals of spiritual biographies. While such stories can be sensationalized, they often share a humble tone, with the chosen one expressing surprise and gratitude rather than triumphalism. They do not claim a charmed life free from all harm, for many indeed suffer greatly. However, they carry a deep conviction that they cannot be destroyed before their appointed tasks are complete. This confidence is not bravado. It is grounded in a trust that their lives are held in hands mightier than their own. Yet this trust raises the problem of theodicy. If God protects some chosen individuals, why not protect everyone from suffering? Why do horrific tragedies befall the innocent, while certain individuals appear shielded from harm? These are haunting questions that challenge simplistic notions of divine favoritism. The chosen themselves wrestle with these questions, often with tears. They realize that their own protection is not a statement of superiority or moral worth. Rather, it is tied to the purpose for which they have been set apart. Their preservation is not a reward but a mandate, underscoring the weight of their calling. With divine protection comes accountability. If one's life is spared from certain disasters or shielded from malevolence, the question becomes, for what? Scripture and spiritual texts often paint chosenness as a vocation of service and sacrifice, not as a pass to avoid the world's troubles. Indeed, many chosen individuals, think of Martin Luther King Jr. or Mother Teresa, were not shielded from trials. They faced hardships, dangers, and in some cases, martyrdom. Protection did not mean an absence of suffering, but a guidance through adversity in order to fulfill a mission that benefits others. Thus, the chosen learn to hold both gratitude and humility, aware that their safeguarded journey is part of a larger puzzle. They are not the heroes of the story, so much as instruments in the hands of the master storyteller. This awareness recalibrates their understanding of success and failure, life and death, safety and risk. The question shifts from, how can I survive or prosper? to how can I serve and fulfill my calling faithfully, even if it costs me everything. In this way, divine guidance and protection function not as a shield against reality, but as a path through it. The chosen might walk through the same storms as everyone else, yet they do so with an inner compass set on a divine north. This compass does not eliminate fear, but it does provide courage. It does not erase sorrow, but it offers hope that sorrow is not the end. And it is precisely through such assurance that they inspire others to trust in a larger story, one in which even the darkest chapters can yield to light. Thus far, we have examined how the chosen perceive themselves, how they navigate faith and reason, and how miracles and divine guidance shape their paths. Now we turn outward. How do they affect those around them? For many, the clearest evidence of a divine calling is found in the unmistakable transformation that occurs in the lives they touch. First and foremost, chosen individuals often become beacons of hope in their communities. They act as living proof that redemption is possible, that goodness can prevail, and that a divine reality may indeed be at work. For someone mired in despair or struggling with unanswered questions, meeting a person who radiates unexplainable peace and compassion can be a tipping point. It kindles a spark of belief that life can be different, that the grip of cynicism can be loosened. Sometimes this hope spreads quietly, through one-on-one relationships, mentoring, or pastoral counseling. In other instances, it manifests on a larger scale, catalyzing social movements, humanitarian projects, or revival in spiritual communities. The chosen ones serve as conduits for a hope that does not rest on human accomplishments alone, but on the conviction that a loving God is intimately involved in the healing of individuals, families, and societies. Interestingly, the chosen are often adept at recognizing and calling forth the hidden potential in others. This goes beyond mere encouragement. It involves a spiritual discernment that sees the gifts God has planted in people, gifts that might be buried under layers of trauma, fear, or self-doubt. By offering guidance, prayer, or simple validation, they help those individuals step into their own calling, thus multiplying the effect of their ministry. Such empowerment can ripple outward, fostering a culture in which people not only admire the chosen one, but also discover their own divine purpose, however large or small it may be. Another transformative aspect is the healing of emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds. Chosen individuals often exhibit a listening ear that transcends ordinary empathy, making people feel truly seen, heard, and valued. This sense of being recognized as beloved can mend the fractures of abuse, addiction, or chronic neglect. In some traditions, the laying on of hands symbolizes a tangible impartation of divine blessing, but even absent formal ceremony, the chosen's loving attention can act as a balm to the hurting. Sometimes physical healings are reported, but more commonly, the transformation is one of the soul, an inner renewal that sets people on a path of wholeness. The restoration of dignity is particularly crucial. Many who exist on the margins of society, refugees, the homeless, those stigmatized by illness or discrimination, find in the chosen a reflection of God's profound love for them. This revelation can awaken an awareness of their own worth, leading to self-respect and the courage to rebuild their lives. Indeed, entire charitable institutions, from orphanages to hospices, have arisen from the visions of chosen individuals who saw in society's outcasts the face of God. When individuals touched by the chosen experience healing or the awakening of purpose, they often become agents of transformation themselves. This chain reaction reflects the multiplication principle found in Jesus' parables about seeds and harvests. A single seed of compassion, sown in a fertile heart, can grow into a garden of altruism that feeds many. Over time, a wave of kindness, generosity, and faith can spread through a family, a neighborhood, or even an entire culture. In this regard, the Chosen One's mission is never a solitary endeavor. It blossoms into a communal, interconnected web of relationships. Everyone touched by grace becomes a carrier of grace to others. As such, the chosen serve as catalysts rather than lone saviors, igniting a cycle of renewal that transcends their individual reach. Their presence in the community functions like a spiritual anchor, a reminder that God is at work in tangible, life-affirming ways. This synergy of divine and human initiative reveals a core truth. Being chosen is not about elevating one person above others, but rather equipping someone to elevate everyone else. Reflecting on the lives of the chosen prompts a series of universal questions about destiny, purpose, and the reality of miracles in a world that can seem both wondrous and cruel. These questions pierce the heart of our shared humanity, touching believers and skeptics alike. A frequent query is whether all humans might be chosen in some measure. Does the concept of chosenness imply exclusivity, that only a select few carry a divine purpose, or is there a sense in which every life is uniquely ordained? Many spiritual teachers argue for a dual stance. Certain individuals are called to specialized roles, prophets, reformers, etc., while every human being possesses a God-given purpose, however humble. This layered understanding respects the special vocation of prophets and saints, without denying the sacred worth and potential of each individual. Thus, we can speak of chosen in both an extraordinary sense and a universal sense. Everyone is beloved by God, but some are anointed for tasks that carry broader ramifications. Another perennial question is whether being chosen violates the notion of free will. If God predestines certain people for certain tasks, where does human freedom enter the picture? Various theological frameworks offer different resolutions. Some adopt a Calvinist view of predestination, suggesting that God's sovereign choice guides everything. Others, more Arminian, emphasize that divine foreknowledge does not cancel human choice. God knows our paths but does not coerce us. Others still propose a middle way, where free will and divine sovereignty coexist in a mystery beyond full human comprehension. For the chosen, these debates become existentially urgent. Many recount periods of resistance to their calling. Moses tried to evade leadership due to his speech impediment. Jonah literally ran the opposite direction. In such examples, God's call seems persistent, but the individual retains the capacity to struggle or even refuse, at least for a while. Ultimately, the synergy of divine pursuit and human ascent shapes the narrative, illustrating that chosenness is neither strictly forced upon someone nor entirely self-generated. The existence of miracles, especially for the chosen, raises the unsettling question: why do some prayers go unanswered while others yield dramatic intervention? This question brims with the pain of those who have prayed for healing, rescue, or relief yet found none. Religious traditions offer multiple perspectives. Some argue that suffering can be a path to sanctification, that miracles are granted according to divine wisdom rather than human demand. Others propose that miracles serve a larger redemptive storyline, and not everyone's story includes conspicuous supernatural events. Still others concede the mystery, emphasizing that our vantage point is limited and we may never fully grasp the intricacies of how God operates. A final philosophical question pertains to the nature of miracles themselves. Must they be understood as violations of natural law, or can they be seen as manifestations of a higher law that transcends our current understanding of physics? Some theologians propose that miracles do not break nature, but rather reveal deeper dimensions of reality that we cannot yet measure. If we broaden our definition of nature to include the divine, then miracles might not be intrusions, but expansions of what is possible. For the chosen, the label is less important than the outcome, a demonstration of God's love and power that invites wonder and gratitude. These universal questions may not yield definitive answers, but they remind us that the phenomenon of chosenness touches on profound theological, philosophical, and existential realities. In wrestling with them, we embrace the tension of living between the seen and the unseen, between knowledge and mystery, between the ache of longing and the joy of hope. It is this tension that fosters growth, pushing us beyond complacency into the deeper waters where faith and reason coalesce in humility and awe. A journey through these themes, divine purpose, the characteristics of the chosen, the interplay of faith and skepticism, and the transformative power of miracles, inevitably leads us back to the doorstep of our own hearts. For while it is fascinating to study the lives of those who appear singled out by God, the deeper invitation is to reflect on the possibilities that exist for each of us in our ordinary days. Are we attentive to the quiet whisper of purpose that may stir within us? Do we remain open to the subtle wonders that might hover just beyond the threshold of our routines? How do we respond to the flickers of compassion, creativity, and courage that might in fact be the seeds of a divine calling? In considering these questions, we realize that the extraordinary does not always arrive with lightning and trumpets. Often it emerges through 1,000 small decisions, acts of kindness, moments of prayerful reflection, instances where we choose empathy over indifference. We might not experience the dramatic miracles recounted in Scripture or the epic tales of saints and prophets. And yet, in a sense, each time we reach beyond ourselves to love sacrificially, each time we persevere in hope when despair seems warranted, and each time we extend forgiveness instead of vengeance, we participate in the miraculous. We become conduits for a grace that is not of our own making, pointing others toward the light that transcends us all. For those who do sense a particular divine mandate, who cannot shake the feeling that they are being called to some great or risky endeavor, this essay offers both affirmation and caution. Affirmation, because the lives of the chosen testify that God can and does select individuals for specialized tasks, equipping them with resilience, peace, and transformative influence. Caution, because the path of the chosen is rarely easy or glamorous. It calls for self-sacrifice, humility, and a willingness to endure trials. Chosenness is not a crown to be worn, but a cross to be carried, a symbol not only of glory, but of responsibility and surrender. Ultimately, the idea of being chosen by God resonates with a deeper human hunger for meaning. It whispers that our lives are not accidents, that we are woven into a cosmic story that dwarfs our comprehension, yet welcomes our participation. This story pulses with miracles both great and small, weaving together the threads of heartbreak and redemption, doubt and faith, frailty and strength. It challenges us to see the world not as a cold stage of random events, but as a theater of divine artistry, where each person has a role to play. And so, we are left with a resonant call to action. Look closely at your life, its twists and turns, its heartbreaks and hopes, and dare to see the fingerprints of something more. Allow the skepticism of your mind and the longing of your soul to converse, forging a faith that is neither credulous nor cynical, but richly human. Be open to the notion that miracles can appear in unremarkable forms, a timely kind word, a sudden insight, a door that opens when all seemed shut. Recognize that you too may be part of a grand tapestry woven by the Creator, chosen to light a candle in a dark corner of the world. In this recognition, the boundary between the ordinary and the extraordinary becomes permeable. We discover that the line between chosen ones and the rest of us is not as stark as it might seem. For in the mysterious economy of grace, each act of love, each offering of hope, each glimpse of God's presence in the mundane carries the germ of the miraculous. To live with this awareness is to embrace a life imbued with sacred purpose. It is to stand in awe of a Creator who delights in using fragile vessels to pour out immeasurable light. And it is to leave a legacy of wonder in the hearts of those we touch, reminding them that the extraordinary is always nearer than we dare imagine.